Right-wingers can get a little bit crazy around elections, and today we're going to go back to an interview I did in November of 2011 with Floyd Brown, the then president of the National Campaign Fund and chairman of the Western Center for Journalism, which might ring a bell to some of you. He joined me and he talked about his thoughts on the Republican primary, which many of you may find very, very odd. He also talked about lots of great ideas, like a flat tax proposal, not getting the attention that Floyd Brown felt they deserved. So we'll go back to November of 2011 and just as a sort of refresher of how things can get a little bit funky and mixed up for right-wingers during elections. Joining me is Floyd Brown. He's president of the National Campaign Fund, also chairman of the Western Center for Journalism. Great to talk to you, Floyd.
Good to talk to you.
You wrote this editorial saying the media is basically ignoring the GOP presidential race as well as some of the economic ideas that are being presented within it. Tell me, what exactly isn't getting enough attention in your opinion, and from who?
Yeah, and first of all, they're not ignoring the race. That's not my contention. My contention is that we have a problem in the media that they always want to deal with presidential campaigns like they're a horse race. And it's who's up 2% in this poll in Iowa, who's down 2% in this poll in New Hampshire or Florida, instead of dealing with ideas. And, it's significant that all of these candidates approach the problems that America faces in slightly different ways. And I think Americans, to really make an informed decision, need to have a good understanding of what those differences are. And I just don't think it penetrates what I will call the mainstream media. Now, you do in talk radio and on the internet and other places, you do get a more, intense discussion of some of these ideas. But in the mainstream media, I just haven't heard the kind of discussion I'd like to hear about ideas.
Okay, so which ideas on which media outlets are not being discussed very specifically here?
Well, which media outlets? Let's just say, the alphabet soup of ABC, NBC, CBS aren't discussing things, for example, like Ron Paul's budget plan. Ron Paul's budget plan, in my opinion, is totally unique in the Republican field in that it actually balances the budget in 3 years with over $1 trillion in budget cuts.
Okay,
he
but
takes
now
a
that
page
plan
from Ronald
in particular,
Reagan and says, hey, I want to actually eliminate departments. I want to eliminate the Department of Education, the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, and others.
But Floyd,
none of the other
to
candidates have taken
here.
a stand like this,
Yeah.
but yet if you don't go to Ron Paul's website or get one of his emails, you probably won't know much about the Ron Paul budget plan.
That's a proposal, though, which has been called, eliminating those departments has been called untenable and reckless by countless economists time after time. We just spoke to economist Richard Wolff about this just last week. Is it possible that some of these proposals aren't getting more discussion because they're absurd?
Yeah, well, I don't think they're absurd. Ronald Reagan wanted to abolish the Department of Education back in 1980. And I think the fact that there's an edifice in Washington, D.C. with marble and thousands of people that don't educate one child is a terrible waste of money and resources. And even worse than that, every school district in America across the country has compliance officers who their full-time job is to send reports to all these people back in Washington, D.C. So actually money is being drained out of the classroom in district after district to deal with all these compliance issues. So what you have is a huge sunk cost that's not educating one child. And I think it's wrong. And I think economists can call it whatever they want. I can get you 10 economists that'll tell you it's a great idea, but reckless and untenable, no.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Ronald Reagan, because in your article you mentioned Reagan and you talk about Reagan's success was lowering rates and eliminating politically motivated tax incentives. That's from your article. And when I look at a lot of the presidential candidates and their advisors, there's so much talk of Ronald Reagan. And when I actually look at what did Ronald Reagan do, yes, he dropped the top marginal tax rate, but everything else seems to be completely ignored. I mean, the idea that he created the Department of Veterans Affairs, that's yet another department. Is that department okay, even though it was 60,000 more people in the federal workforce? It seems very arbitrary and hand-picking. Ron Paul wants to eliminate certain departments, and then Ronald Reagan was great, but he added a huge amount to the national deficit and federal workforce.
Well, actually, if you look at the Reagan record carefully, you'll
Yeah.
see that discretionary spending went down across three of the Reagan's 8 years. Now, if in fact, that's not a perfect record, but he held spending in check. And when I talk about eliminating the political deductions, there was a tax reform bill that was really a bipartisan plan, because you have to remember, Ronald Reagan never served with a Congress that was completely of his own party. And so, unlike a lot of presidents, he had to compromise. And so they did, I think, a pretty darn good job when they put together their tax compromise, because it ended a lot of what I will call crony capitalism, or special incentives for special political groups or chosen groups, or whatever you want to call them. And I think that in the 25 plus years since Reagan left, the all of those have been added back in plus, and
Yeah, but the
so the
thing
tax
is, Floyd,
code's now
I just,
some 80,000 pages long. It's complex,
yeah.
and special groups get all kinds of special goodies as a result of it, and I think it's just wrong.
I just don't understand the obsession we see with Reagan and so many conservative circles when he tripled the federal budget deficit, unemployment soared after his 81 tax cuts, raised taxes 11 times. I mean, even former
I
Republican
just think
Senator Alan
you're dealing
Simpson
in an
raised
alternate
those.
history, because I graduated from college in 1983 to a terrible job market that was a result of the Jimmy Carter recessions, and he got the economy moving, and
And
I
unemployment to go up.
benefited from that. There hasn't been a recession as bad as that recession until now,
Well, then
and
Republican
he made a
Senator
lot of, I
Alan
think, very
Simpson's
savvy
living in
and
that same
very
alternate
good
reality.
moves to get the economy
Yeah.
moving, and so I just think you're dealing with an alternate reality. I'm not reading the same history you're reading,
Republican
and I don't know
Senator
what book you're getting it from, but it
I got
seems
it
to
from
be a pretty
Republican Senator
biased
Alan Simpson on Fox News in the last week. Republican Senator Alan Simpson gave me this alternate history on Fox News to his cronies in the last week. So I don't know. Do you think he's living in an alternate reality too, I guess?
well, I didn't hear the interview, so I'm not going to speculate and try and put words in his mouth.
Last thing, Floyd, on the Perry tax plan. You like the Perry tax plan, flat tax plan. You say that's not getting enough attention either, right?
Yeah, well, actually, when I wrote the piece, it's gotten some attention since I wrote the piece, and I think we need to flatten the rates. I like the fact that in the Perry plan, up to $36,000, you don't pay any taxes, and I like that huge personal exemption, and so it's a good plan, and I think it merits a full hearing. And this gets back to another one of my pet peeves about the coverage, and that is what they're trying to do currently to demonize Herman Cain. I think the Politico story that came out was baseless. It didn't have any substance to it,
Actually,
and it's just the kind of hatchet
he's already
journalism
admitted the
that
Politico
is
report
not
was
called
accurate.
for.
He's already admitted the Politico report actually talked about settlements and accusations that existed. It seems the Politico report was completely accurate, and now we're seeing yet a third story about Herman Cain. But we're getting a little bit off topic. We're going to get to that. On the topic of the Perry tax plan, though, and we have limited time left, Steve Forbes has now come out and endorsed Rick Perry. Steve Forbes, of course, very well known for his fair tax, flat tax plan. It got him 20% of the Iowa straw poll vote in '99. That's as far as he got. Is that not a sign that this idea of Rick Perry's is going absolutely nowhere?
I know that was a long time ago and a different campaign, and so no, I don't think that he's going to be hurt by this flat tax plan. I also think Gingrich has a great flat tax plan, and that's gotten virtually no coverage. I'm glad the Perry plan has gotten some. I think Americans are ready. There's a point in time when Americans are ready to get special interest politics out of the tax code.
All right. I don't know if the politicians are ready for that, though. FloydReports.com.
Well, they're never ready for it because they want more power. That's their goal in life.
FloydReports.com is the website. Floyd Brown, president of the National Campaign Fund. We're not agreeing on much, but it's a good discussion, so I appreciate talking to you.
Great to visit with you. Call anytime.